Good morning, all of you. And this is time that we discuss two playwrights who are referred to as a joint entity. And they are called Beamunt and Fletcher. And they are often regarded as a single entity, and they join together for the production of about 52 plays. And they are often referred to as a single entity, but at the same time, they produce independent plays also, Beamunt and Fletcher. And their collaboration was very unique. And they produced almost 52 plays together. And both Beamunt and Fletcher came from upper class. And Francis Beamunt was born in 1584, some 20 years after the birth of Shakespeare. And he died in the same year of Shakespeare's death. He became dead in 1616. And he died when he was only 32 years of age. He died young. And there was another writer, John Fletcher, and these two joined together. Beamunt was born in 1584 and died in the year Shakespeare died, but a few months before the death of Shakespeare. And then the other writer, John Fletcher. Fletcher seems to be a very popular writer because he collaborated with Shakespeare also for a few plays. Seemingly one of the very popular playwrights of the period, John Fletcher. And he was born in 1579. And he died in 1625. And he died when he was only 46 years. 46. And he also died young. And he was the son of a clergyman. And later his father turned to become the Lord Bishop of London. And both Beamunt and Fletcher came from the upper class. And they became very close friends. And Beamunt studied at Oxford University, whereas Fletcher studied at Cambridge University. And they shared the same lodging near the Globe Theatre and used to watch the plays in the various theatres in the area there, and watching regularly the plays performed in the Globe Theatre. And they remained in the same room quite a long time until Beamunt got married in 1630. Beamunt got married with a lady named Ursula, and he had two daughters also in the relationship. And with Beamunt getting married, they became separated. And they again continued to write plays. But Beamunt was affected by a stroke, and he stopped writing plays and continued to write a few poems. And Beamunt is also regarded as a poet of the period. And they belonged to the Mermaid Tavern group. And the plays produced by them were staged by the Mermaid Tavern group. And both Beamunt and Fletcher were close friends with Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. And Beamunt died a few weeks before the death of Shakespeare. And when we examine the contributions of these two writers, they actually produced many number of tragi-comedies. And there are also at the same time tragedies and comedies. And combining both tragedy and comedy, they produced a special genre of drama. And that came to be called the tragicomedies. And we find Fletcher offering a definition to the tragicomedy. Tragicomedy is neither comedy nor tragedy, but a mixture of the two. And in his play, The Faithful Shepherdess, he produces his definition of tragicomedy. In the preface attached with Fletcher's play, The faithful shepherdess, there is the definition given by Fletcher on tragicomedy. And we know that when Ben Jonson represented the classical play of the period, most often Ben Jonson borrowed themes from the classics. And when he represented the classical play of the period, Beamunt and Fletcher represented the romantic. When Jonson represented the classic elements, Beamunt and Fletcher represented the romantic. And there is always a touch of humor, pathos, and intensity in their works. And Fletcher cooked up with witty and graceful dialogues. Fletcher was an expert in producing witty and graceful dialogues. And Beamunt produced the tragic intensity and genial humor. The genial humor and the tragic intensity produced by Beamunt, and the witty and graceful dialogues were produced by Fletcher. And the first Beamunt and Fletcher folio came out in 1647. And remember the year of the folios. Shakespeare's first folio came out in 1623. And Ben Jonson's first folio came out in 1616, in the year of Shakespeare's death. And the Beamunt Fletcher folio came out in 1647. And remember the year of the Beamunt Fletcher folio. And it contained 35 plays. And the second folio came out in 1679. The first folio in 1647, and the second folio came out in 1679. And it contained 53 plays, including the plays found in the first folio. The second folio contained 53 plays. And the first play produced by them was The Woman Hater. And it was produced in 1606. And it was produced as a comedy, a court comedy. The Woman Hater or the Hungry Courtier. The Woman Hater or the Hungry Courtier was a comedy produced jointly by Beamunt and Fletcher. And it happened to be the debate play produced by them. And it came out in the year 1606. And then they joined together for producing tragicomedies. And there are elements of comedy and there are also elements of tragedy. And neither total a tragedy nor total a comedy. And it's a mixture of the tragedy and comedy, what called the tragicomedy. Beamunt and Fletcher joined together for a number of tragicomedies. One of the very interesting tragicomedies produced by them is entitled Philaster, or Love Lies a Bleeding. So it has got a subtitle also, Philaster, the main title. And the subtitle is Love Lies a Bleeding. There is a bleeding also in the love. And actually the central character is a young prince named Philaster. And the play is titled Philaster. And the subtitle is that, so it is a kind of love that requires bleeding. Love lies a bleeding. And there occurs a bleeding also in the love. So, and it is a play written partly in verse and partly in prose. And when we go and find the story of the play, we find that the king of Calabria seized the throne of Sicily. The king of Calabria seized the throne of Sicily, defeated the king of Sicily, and took up the throne. The Calabrian king started ruling Sicily also. And the son of the king, the son of the Sicilian king named Philaster was not killed. So his father was killed, and the important officers in the Sicilian court were all killed. But the young prince Philaster was not killed, because the Calabrian king knew that he was liked by the people. And for fear of mob violence, actually the kings wanted the public support also at the same time. Even though the king is a monarch, he rules the kingdom with support from the people also. There must be the public support for the king. Therefore, he didn't kill the young man Philaster. He was afraid of mob violence. And this young man Philaster was a handsome and adventurous young man. So he was in love with a girl named Arethusa. And accidentally, Arethusa was the daughter of the usurper. Arethusa was the daughter of the king of Calabria. The king of Calabria had seized the throne of Sicily. And most of the important people were killed except Philaster. He didn't kill Philaster because he was afraid of mob violence. The people supported the young prince. The young prince seemed to be a dear person for the general public. So Philaster was not killed. And Philaster, the young man, was in love with a girl named Arethusa. And Arethusa was the daughter of the usurper, the daughter of the king of Calabria, who usurped the throne of Sicily. And it was at the time Philaster engaged a page named Bellario as a messenger. In fact, to convey love messages, he engaged a young page, a smart-looking young page named Bellario. And it was at the same time the king of Calabria, the father of Arethusa, wanted her to marry a lord. The man wanted his daughter to marry a lord, a Spanish prince named Pharamond. And Pharamond was a misanthropic, cruel, treacherous lord, Pharamond. But the father wanted Arethusa marry the Spanish prince Pharamond. And Arethusa was actually in love with Philaster. But the father wanted her to marry another Spanish lord named Pharamond. And normally the course of true love never runs smooth. In place of Shakespeare and in literary works, we normally come to find that the course of love never runs smooth. There may be problems coming. Philaster was in love with Arethusa, but Arethusa's father wanted her to marry a Spanish lord named Pharamond. And Arethusa tried to expose Pharamond and his secret affair with another lady named Megra. And Pharamond was a womanizer also. He was a cunning, deceitful, and treacherous young prince. He was also a womanizer and drunkard. And he maintained a relation with a lady named Megra. And it was known to Arethusa. And Arethusa exposed the secret affair between Pharamond and Megra. and Paramount became offended. And he wanted to defame Arethusa. And he knew that Arethusa was in love with Philaster. Therefore, he wanted to defame Arethusa and found that there was a young man named Bellario visiting her quite often. And Paramount spread the news that Arethusa was having illicit relations with Bellario, the page. And he spread the news. And it came to the attention of Philaster also, and Philaster also felt very bad. And he quarreled with Arethusa. And after all, he also believed that Bellario had some seditious relations with Arethusa. And therefore, he dismissed Bellario from service. Bellario was engaged to pass the love messages to Arethusa. And it was Philaster who engaged Bellario. But Paramount spread the news that Arethusa and Bellario had seditious relations. And Philaster also suspected Arethusa to have some sexual relation with Bellario. And he dismissed Bellario from service. And he also quarreled with Arethusa. And they met in a wilderness, in a forest, and they quarreled each other. And in the quarrel, Philaster attacked Arethusa, and her face was wounded, and blood started dripping. Arethusa declared that she would commit suicide. She told Philaster that she had no relations with Bellario. Bellario was a nice, young, good-looking page. And he seemed to be very helpful to her because he communicated the love messages without delay. And therefore she liked him. But she never maintained any seditious relationships with Bellario. And when she prepared to commit suicide, Philaster understood her fidelity. Philaster understood her faithfulness. And at the end, Philaster decided to marry her. And he got married with Arethusa. And only at the end, it came to be known that Bellario the page was actually a lady, a girl in disguise. Bellario was not a boy. He was actually a girl in disguise. And why Bellario came in the disguised shape of a boy? Because Bellario loved Philaster. And Bellario was originally named Euphrasia. And only at the end of the play, so it became known that Bellario was a girl in disguise. And the girl was named Euphrasia. And Euphrasia was actually the daughter of a courtier named Dion. And why she had become a boy and worked as a page under Philaster? Because Euphrasia loved Philaster and she wanted to be always near to Philaster. She hoped for his nearness. Bellario was actually the disguised Euphrasia. Euphrasia disguised as a boy named Bellario because Euphrasia loved Philaster and wanted to be always near to him. And when Arethusa learned about this, both Arethusa and Philaster felt very happy. And they felt greatly relieved also. Suspicion was over. And Arethusa appointed Euphrasia as her waiting maid, so that she can always be near to Philaster. And this is actually the content found in the play Philaster, or Love Lies a Bleeding. And the bleeding is also there found in the play. And the subtitle seems to be significant, because we find Philaster attacking Arethusa and wounding her on her face, and blood dripping. And this is the blood dripping referred to in the subtitle. Love lies a bleeding. Actually, love lies there like a kind of bleeding. And when he finds the bleeding, the blood coming out from her face, and when he comes to learn that she is prepared to commit suicide, so he realizes the worth of Arethusa. And so he decides to marry her. And love becomes reassured on finding the blood. Therefore, the subtitle seems to be significant. Love lies a bleeding. And Philaster is the main protagonist here, and the play titled Philaster. And the play is actually influenced by Philip Sidney's Arcadia. And Arcadia was one of the major sources of inspiration for Beamunt and Fletcher to produce this play. And there also we come to find love and lovers getting into love, after all defeating the wild animals. So the male members are found coming in disguise. Philoclea and Pamela are loved by two princes, and the princes come in disguise as shepherd and a lady. One comes as a shepherd and the other comes as a lady. And after all, they fight with lions and wild animals and save the girls. And then they expose their disguise and they become lovers. And actually, the story of Arcadia has become a source for Beamunt and Fletcher to produce the play Philaster, or Love Lies a Bleeding. And so there are again a few similarities to be found in the play with the plays like Cymbeline. Cymbeline is a play produced by Shakespeare. And there also we come to find Love Lies a Bleeding. Actually, Imogen, the female protagonist there, gets into a conflict with her lover and suspicion there. The lover becomes suspicious and he is posthumous. And one of his friends gets into a wager that he will go and seduce Imogen and bring the secret details of Imogen, and he returns and intimates Posthumus that Imogen has got a black mark, a mole under her breast. And after all, when it comes to be known to Posthumus, the lover of Imogen, Imogen is suspected by Posthumus. And he wanted his servant to kill Imogen. And here also we come to find the problems coming in the way of love. And Samuel Daniel has got a poem called Faithful Shepherdess. And in Faithful Shepherdess also we come to find there are similar situations. Yeah? And this is one very popular play produced by Beamunt and Fletcher. And it is titled Philaster, or Love Lies a Bleeding. And it is produced in the year 1608. And another play produced by Beamunt and Fletcher is entitled Coxcomb. And it's also a very popular play. It's also a very popular play. And Coxcomb actually refers to a vain and conceited man. A vain and conceited man is always referred to as a coxcomb. So foolishly dressing and coming to the people and speaking in a vain nature and bragging, boasting always, but with no worth at all. And such people are often referred to as coxcombs. So it's a terminology used to refer the vulgar people, the freaks. And in modern times, the coxcombs are called freaks. So with no purpose, but wandering, and always claims that they have something with them. But in actuality, there will be something only blank. Such people are, and they are often referred to as freaks. And the coxcombs are almost like freaks. And the play produced by Beamunt and Fletcher jointly is called Coxcomb, and it was produced in 1608 or in 1610. And the play was performed on the stage in 1613. And there we come to find the coxcombs. There are not only one coxcomb, but there are two people. One named Antonio. So he's a very conceited and foolish man. And he learns from his friend Mercury that Mercury has been maintaining secret relation with his wife. Antonio is a very conceited, foolish man. He is the first coxcomb. And he has got a friend named Mercury. And he learns from Mercury that he has been maintaining secret love with Antonio's wife. And what a husband is to do in such a situation. So he has to cut the friendship with the man. And he has to send the man away, because if he wanted to maintain a family life, if he wanted to continue living peacefully with his wife, he should have to send away the friend, because the friend has already started making relation with his wife, and it should not be permitted to go in the same manner. So he should have to send the friend away. But Antonio, being a coxcomb, tells Mercury that he can visit his wife. Whenever he wished to meet her, he can come and meet. And if he plans to take her away for some outing, so she can take her also. But at the same time, he should remember that she should be given things that are needed for her. She should never be starved and underclothed, and she should be given whatever she wants. So he entertains the relation. He helps Mercury continue to entertain his relationship with Antonio's wife. And no doubt, Antonio is a coxcomb. Antonio wants Mercury to continue relationship with his wife. So he facilitates actually the relationship. And he tells Mercury that he can visit his wife anytime that he wished to visit her. Also, Mercury is permitted to take his wife for outing under the condition that she should be given food and clothing. And she should be satisfied. And here he feels greatly relieved, because until this time he has been looking after every affair of his wife, has been paying money for her food and clothing, has been paying money to her for her outings also. And he is now relieved, because there has been another person also, Mercury, prepared to visit his wife, to spare his time for her and to take her for outing. And Antonio, no doubt, is a coxcomb. And he is the one character presented in the play. And then there is another Coxcomb, and he is named Ricardo. And he is in love with a girl named Viola. And remember the name of Viola. And if you may be interested in asking questions, like in two places we find the character named Viola and identify which are the two places. So in 12th night we come to find a young lady named Viola undergoing a disguise and working with Lord Orsino. And at the end, getting married with Lord Orsino also. In the beginning, she becomes shipwrecked along with her brother Antonio and Viola there. And the name is very popular name, Viola. And Shakespeare himself was in love with a girl named Viola de Lesseps. And we come to find the same reference in Tom Shepard's film, Shakespeare in Love. And the name Viola that we have to remember always. And in the play written by Beamunt and Fletcher, entitled Coxcomb also, we come to find a young lady named Viola. The second Coxcomb I told you is a man named Ricardo. And Ricardo is in love with a pretty young lady named Viola. And Viola insists to elope with him. And it was actually he who suggested the elopement. And Ricardo, while meeting Viola, told her that the best way for them to live together is by making an elopement. To run away from their place and then to join together and live together. And it was he who suggested the idea of the elopement. And Viola agreed with it. Okay. So we can elope from here. And the date and the place of beginning their journey all been finalized by them. But on the day, at the appointed time, when Viola reaches the place, Ricardo is not there because Ricardo had become drunk by the time and he had lost his consciousness. So he had fallen down near a pub and was found sleeping there. And Viola remained in the place fixed for the elopement and waited for Ricardo. And Ricardo has not turned up because by the time he had fallen unconscious because of his excess drinking. And no doubt he is also another coxcomb. So a man insists his lady to come and join with him for elopement. And the date and venue fixed that. But when the girl comes, the boy doesn't come because the boy is drunk and sleeping unconsciously. And the girl waits for him and finally becomes angry and leaves the place. But Ricardo, when he wakes up, goes to Viola and again requests her to forget all such things and to join with him. And Ricardo, on recovering his senses, becomes truly penitent. And he at last joins with Viola. And they again make a decision to make elopement another day at another place. And we don't know what is going to happen on that day. On that day, perhaps, he may again drink and become unconscious and will not come and meet the girl. And in some occasion, the girl might not have turned up. And this may also happen, and we don't know what is going to happen for the day that they have fixed for the next elopement. And here we come to find that there are two coxcombs, one Antonio and the other Ricardo. And we don't actually know what is the thing that is going to happen in the life of Antonio or in the life of Ricardo. And these two people are coxcombs and seems to be a very popular play. And this is the content of the play, the Coxcomb. And it was performed in 1612 And in 1613 also it was performed. And it is believed that the play was written by Beamunt and Fletcher between 1608 and 1610. And then we come to find the other tragicomedy produced by Beamunt and Fletcher, entitled A King and No King. And it is produced in 1611. And also a joint production, A King and No King. And it is a tragicomedy. And the theme is incest. So the incestuous relationship between a brother and sister. And the tragicomedy is entitled A King and No King. And the subject is incest. There is a brother and a sister making illegitimate relationship, incestuous relationship. But at the end, the incestuous pair was not actually brother and sister. And at the end, it was identified that the incestuous pair was not actually brother and sister. And when we get into the story, we find that the man is named Arbaces, and he is the prince of Panthea. And he has got his sister named Panthea, and she is the princess. The brother Arbaces is the prince, and Panthea is the sister, and she is princess. And Arbaces has been presented in the play as a mixed character, both brave and coward. Actually, a person belonging to a royal family will always be a brave man. But in the case of Arbaces, so he is a mixed character, both brave and coward at the same time. And at the end, it becomes clear that he does not belong to the royal family. And the comic relief is also there. And there is no problem for making love between Arbaces and Panthea, because at the end it is proved that Arbaces is not actually a person belonging to the royal family. Therefore, the love between Arbaces and Panthea is not to be termed as incestuous love. And they become united as husband and wife at the end. And they are proved that they are not siblings. So there is no incest in the story. And it is referred to as Arbaces is king and no king. Actually, he is king and no king. And he is brave, and at the same time he is coward. And the first story proves that he is not at all a king. But with his marriage with the princess, he has become a king also at the same time. And a king and no king. And this is the main story contained in the play, A King and No King. But there is also a subplot with a number of page boys. And they are led by a person named Bessus, a very comical character, Bessus. Like Falstaff in Shakespeare's play, Bessus is the leader of the group of pages. And the pages are found doing a lot of comic activities in the play. And Bessus and his cronies are liked by people like Henrietta Maria. Henrietta Maria was actually the wife of Charles I. And she was a French queen, Henrietta Maria. And Henrietta Maria liked the comic characters in the play A King and No King. Henrietta Maria also watched the play A King and No King. And she became greatly interested in the comic characters presented in the play. And the comedy enacted in the play by a group of page boys under the leadership of a fat page named Bessus. And Dryden greatly appreciated this play. And he had produced a play called Love's Triumphant. So in imitation of this play, A King and No King, Dryden also produced a play called Love Triumphant. Dryden had a great opinion for the play A King and No King. In the beginning, it is said that there is incestuous relationship between the prince and the princess. But actually, the prince has been proved as no prince. He is not a man belonging to the royal family. Therefore, there is no problem of the incestuous relation. And the subject becomes dissolved of the incestuous story. And there is no wrong thing in the relation between Arbaces and Pantheon. And after all, there is also comic relief offered in the play by a group of pages under the leadership of a fat page named Bessus, appreciated by people like Henrietta Maria, the wife of Charles Fletcher. And Dryden greatly praised this play, and he had produced a play also in its imitation entitled Love Triumphant. And then these two people produced the comedies, tragicomedies, and tragedies also. And now we discuss a tragedy produced by these two people. Beamunt and Fletcher produced tragedies also. One popular tragedy produced by them was the Maid's tragedy. And it is called the Maid's tragedy. And it was published in 1619. But it was produced in 1611. The Maid's tragedy. Beamunt and Fletcher produced a famous tragedy called the Maid's tragedy. It is one of the best of their tragedies. And it is also a tragedy on sex, a sensational tragedy on sex. And when we get into the story, interestingly, there is a young man named Aminter, A-M-I-N-T-O-R, Aminter. And he had been in love with a girl named Aspatia. Aminter in love with Aspatia. But the king wants him to marry another lady. Aminter is in the military, working under the king. And Aminter actually wishes to marry Aspatia. And he has got a very good friend named Melanthes. And Aminter takes leave from the camp under the excuse that he is on his way to get married with Aspatia. And Melanthes, his close friend, blesses him on his marriage and wishes him all best for his marriage. And Aminter leaves the barrack, in fact, with the intention of getting married with Aspatia, and everyone believes that Aminter will get married with Aspatia because Aminter has been entertaining love with Aspatia for many years. They have been lovers for the last many years. And the love is coming to be fruitful through their marriage. And everyone wished their marriage. But when Aminter returned to his hometown with the intention of marrying Aspatia, the king calls him and wants him to marry another lady, not Aspatia. The king wants him to marry another lady named Evadane, E-V-A-D-N-E, Evadane. And Evadane was actually the favorite of the king. Evadane was the mistress of the king. If Aminter would marry with Evadane, the king could entertain his relationship with the mistress. Without the knowledge of the people, he can continue entertaining his relationship with Evadane if Aminter will get married with Evadane. After all, getting married with Evadane, Aminter may go to the battlefront so that the king can enjoy sexual relation with Evadine, and with this intention, he wants Aminder marry Evadine, and he's the king. And when he insists Aminder to marry Evadine in spite of Aspatia, Aminder has nothing to speak against it. And he is forced to agree with the king. And he gets married with Evadine. And actually, Evadine is the mistress of the king. And at the same time, Evadine is the sister of his best friend named Melanthes. So in the beginning of the play itself, I told you Melanthes is the best friend of Aminder. And when Aminder wanted to go and get married with Aspatia, Melanthes blesses him, wishes him all the best for his marriage. But when he reaches his hometown with the plan of getting married with Aspatia, the king calls him and insists him to marry Evadine. And Evadine is actually an untrustworthy girl. And she is a lady of an easy virtue. She had been maintaining sexual relation with the king. And she has been treated by the king as his mistress. And he wants Aminder to marry Evadine so that he can entertain his relation with Evadine. And when the king insists Aminder to marry Evadine, he marries Evadine. But on the first day itself, he learns that Evadine is the mistress of the king. And that the king wanted him marry Evadine with the purpose of continuing his relationship. So on discovering this, Evadine and Aminder live separately, producing the make-believe that they are married people, they are married couple. They only produce the make-believe that they are married people. It's only a make-believe, making others believe that they are married. But they are found sleeping on two beds. Aminder on the bed and Evadine on the floor. And they behave before the people that they are married. And there is no possibility for them to live together. But for the time being, they decided to continue as husband and wife, producing the make-believe that they are married people. And it is at the time Evadine's brother Melanthes also reaches. And when he comes to understand this problem, he learns from Aminder that the problem with him is that Evadine is the mistress of the king, and it is because of Evadine's relation with the king, he has not been entertaining any sexual relation with his wife. That they are sleeping separately, even though they are in the same room. And they are behaving before the people as married people. But in actuality, there are no such relations between them. And Melanthes goes and tries to convince his sister that it will be better for you to stop all relation with the king and continue living with the Aminder. Or you go and kill the king and then start living with Aminder so that you can prove your worth. If you want to prove your worth, stop relation with the king and continue living with Aminder. Or kill the king and then live with Aminder. He advises his sister either to kill the king or to stop her relation with the king. So he awakens moral conscience in the girl. And as a result, she goes and murders the king. So Evadine goes and murders the king. And after all, she comes out with the blood-dripping dagger. And it is at the same time, there is also another thing taking place in the play, another important incident taking place in the play. And we know that Aspatia was in love with Aminter. And when Aminter got married to Vadain, Aspatia became offended. And she wanted to take revenge on Aminter. And she came dressed as a man. Aspatia came under the disguise of a man and challenged Aminter for a duel. So she came in the shape of a man and challenged Aminter for a duel. She wanted to kill Aminter or die. Either to kill or die. And she doesn't actually want to continue because she loved Aminter in such a deep way that she could not continue living. She wanted to kill Aminter or she wanted to die. So she disguised herself as a young knight and approached Aminter and challenged him. But Aminter didn't take up the challenge. He refused to fight with the young knight, saying that there is no reason to fight with him. And if there is a duel, there must be some reason. And all on a sudden, a young man has come to him and challenges him for a duel. And there is no need to fight with a layman. No need to fight with a layman. You are a mad person. And why do you want to fight with me? But the disguised Aspatia actually fights with Aminter, and the disguised Aspatia takes the dagger and fights with Aminter and wounds him first of all. And Aminter becomes angry. And he takes his sword and gives the lady, gives Aspatia a good beating. And she became terribly wounded. And Aspatia had fallen down. So she provoked Aminter. Aspatia came in the disguise of a man and challenged Aminter. And Aminter refused to fight with the disguised person. But the disguised person started fighting with Aminter and taking dagger and giving him a stab. And Aminter then took his sword and gave the disguised person a good slap. And she became seriously wounded and she fell down. And it is at the time Evadain comes to the place with the blood dripping dagger. And she has reached there after killing the king. And she tells Aminter that she had killed the king. So she wanted to live with Aminter, that Aminter could take her as his wife. They could live together as man and wife because she had killed the king. But Aminter refuses Evadain. And Evadain stabs herself and dies. That this is a tragedy. Evadain has killed the king, and after all, she reached to Aminter with the blood-dripping dagger and told Aminter that she had killed the king and wanted Aminter to accept her as his wife. But Aminter refused Evadain. And Evadain stabbed herself and fell down dead. And now Aspatia, the disguised person who has been wounded by Aminter, so he exposes her disguise and shows herself that she is Aspatia. And she expresses her love to Aminter. And she says that she came in the disguise because she could not live without Aminter. Either to kill herself or to kill Aminter. With that intention, she wanted to fight with Aminter. And now she has learned that Aminter hadn't lived with Evadain, and she had seen the scene of Evadain coming with the blood-dripping dagger and asking Aminder to live with her as man and wife, to consider her as his wife, that she had killed the king. Still, Aminder refused her. And on finding this, Aspatia understood the worth of Aminder. And there was nothing to be done now. There was no possibility for Aminder to live with Aspatia because Aspatia received a big blow, a very serious wound in her body, and she was about to be dead. And she breathed her last. And what Aminder could do, both Ivadain and Aspatia became dead. And he also stabbed himself and became dead. All people. The king was killed by Ivadain, then Ivadain killed herself. And the young lady Aspatia fought with Aminder under the disguise that she is a man, and received a good blow, and she also became dead. And Aminder also committed suicide. And when the friends of Aminder reached the place, Melendez was also there. And Melendez wanted to kill himself. He took his dagger, and as he was about to stab himself, his friends prevented him from committing suicide. And when the friends took away the arms from him, Melendez announced that he would die by fasting. He would undergo starvation and die. And this is the content of the play, The Maid's Tragedy. And the question comes, who is the maid? And actually it is Aspatia. Aspatia was loved by Aminder in the beginning. And he got married with Ivadain, and Ivadain was actually a lady with an easy virtue. And she is not to be called a maid. Normally, a maid is a lady with some good qualities. A virgin is often called a maid. And Aspatia is a virgin. She is a virtuous lady. And she is to be called the maid. And Ivadain, even though a lady, doesn't have virginity, and she is not at all a virtuous lady. She was the mistress of the king. Then she got married with Aminder. And she killed the king and proved herself as a worthy lady. Even then, she is not to be regarded as the maid. And the eponymous character of the Maid's tragedy, the eponymous character of the Maid's tragedy is Aspatia. The eponymous character of the play, The Maid's Tragedy, is Aspatia, not Ivadain. And this is also a play jointly written by Beamunt and Fletcher. And we have seen a few plays jointly written by Beamunt and Fletcher, starting with Philaster or Love Lies a Bleeding tragicomedy, then Coxcomb, a comedy, and then A King and No King tragicomedy, and then The Maid's Tragedy, absolutely a tragedy. And this is time that we have to discuss the solo plays written by Beamunt and Fletcher. The independent plays produced by Beamunt and Fletcher. So, and we discussed the one popular play produced by Beamunt, and it is entitled The Night of the Burning Pestle. The Night of the Burning Pestle. And it seems to be an experimental play produced by Beamunt. Actually, this is a solo play produced by Francis Beamunt. And this is the first whole parody play. And it's a parody from beginning to end. So it's a parody play from beginning to end. And a comedy play from beginning to end. And it's actually a satire on chivalric romances. And it is produced as a satire on chivalric romances like Don Quixote. And in Don Quixote, we come to find a knight errant named Quixote, going around the place, in fact, to correct injustice. And he wanted to put justice and to save the maidens in distress and to correct the problems. So he has turned to become a knight errant. And this play, The Knight of the Burning Pestle, is written as a parody to the popular romance called Don Quixote. And again, it is a parody on the urban heroism in Thomas Heywood's The Four Apprentices of London. And in Thomas Heywood, we come to find a play entitled The Four Apprentices of London. And it was a play produced by Thomas Heywood in 1592. It was a play produced by Thomas Heywood in 1592, entitled The Four Apprentices of London. And actually, it seemed to be the beginning of the Apprentice play. The beginning of the Apprentice plays. The Four Apprentices of London. And there we come to find that there are four apprentices. And they were the sons of a Duke of Bologna. The Duke of Bologna had lost his dukedom. And his sons came to become apprentices. And the Elizabethan age was also an age for apprentices. Normally, the young men, after completing their studies, will come to the town and work as apprentices under various masters. If one wants to start a grocery, for example, or if one wants to start some kind of business, so for example, shoemaking, or some kind of carpentry works, or some artistic works. So he is to undergo a period of apprenticeship. And there will be apprentices working in grocery, so in the furniture shops, so in the cloth shops, and under gold merchants and goldsmiths, under haberdashers. So there may be the apprentices. And in London, there were many number of apprentices, and the apprentices were not given any freedom by their masters. The masters restricted their freedom. And the apprentices were asked to work for a long time. So if a person is appointed as an apprentice, the salary will be very mere. And the working hours will be long. And the effort required is too much. And they suffer a lot under their masters. And there are many literary works based on the life of apprentices produced during the Elizabethan time. And Thomas Heywood produced a play entitled The Four Apprentices. The apprentices means apprentices. The A is avoided in the word apprentices. In Thomas Heywood, we come to find the Four Apprentices of London. And actually, these four apprentices in Thomas Heywood's play are the sons of a duke. But the duke lost his dukedom. And after all, the young men were made to become apprentices. So one person named Godfrey, the eldest, became apprentice under a mercer, a cloth merchant, and came into the field of cloth business. And the next brother named Guy, he turned to become a goldsmith. And this is the story found in Thomas Heywood's play, The Four Prentices of London. And the play is also having a subtitle. It is Jerusalem. The Four Prentices of London or Jerusalem. And the king of the Duke of Bologna has lost his dukedom. So his sons were made to become apprentices. The eldest son, named Godfrey, turned to become an apprentice of a cloth merchant, a mercer. And the next son, Guy, became apprentice under goldsmith. And the third son, Charles, turned to become an apprentice under a haberdasher. And the last son, Eustace, turned to become an apprentice under a grocer. But through their hard work and their strength of character, they tend to become great people. And at the end, we come to find them turning to become great people. Godfrey becomes the Earl of Bologna. The former Earl was his father, and he became the Earl. And the next son, Guy, the king of Jerusalem. He has turned to become the king of Jerusalem. And the third son, Charles, became the king of Cyprus. And the fourth son, Eustace, became the king of Sicily. And one young man got married with the daughter of the French king. And their sister Bellafranca also became married. And at the end of the play, the father and the sons meet at Jerusalem, and all are happy. And this actually is the story contained in Thomas Heywood's play, The Four Prentices of London. And in Thomas Dekker, we come to find another popular Prentice play produced by Thomas Dekker. And we know Thomas Dekker, he became a part of the Poetomakia. The conflict between writers like Ben Jonson, John Marston, and Thomas Dekker. And Dekker is very popular for his play, The Shoemaker's Holiday. And it was produced in the year 1599. So it is a very interesting, boisterous, rowdy comedy of London life. And the important characters are apprentices. And the play has got a subtitle also, The Gentle Craft. Shoemaking is actually a gentle craft. And so in the play, so a shoemaker turns to become the mayor of London, named Simon Eyre. Simon Eyre, the master of shoemaking, has got a number of apprentices under him, and he turns to become the Lord Mayor of London. And he arranges a special party for the apprentices. And he recognizes the services of the apprentices. And he orders for a special party for the apprentices. And the king also attends the party. And it is he who announced a day as a holiday for the shoemaker apprentices. So he announced a day as a holiday for the apprentices. And Simon Eyre was the leader of the apprentices. Simon Eyre became a saint, and the apprentices consider him as their supreme master and head. So they are God. And every apprentice may be thankful to Simon Eyre, because it was Simon Eyre who identified the service of the apprentice and invited them for a grand dinner and offered them a holiday also, a weekly holiday. And the play written by Thomas Dekker is entitled The Shoemaker's Holiday, or the gentle craft. And it actually speaks the story of a master of the apprentices named Simon Eyre. And the play actually deals with the life of the apprentices. The central character there turns to become an apprentice, and his service is recognized, and he is permitted to marry. And Simon Eyre becoming the mayor of London, and he is considered as the head of the apprentices, and he has become a saint also at his later life. And the story produced by Thomas Dekker in his play Shoemaker's Holiday, produced in 1599. The Night of the Burning Pestle was produced by Beamunt independently. And later critics say that there is the involvement of Fletcher also. So after all, there are the later critics who maintain the idea that Fletcher is also involved in the play. But anyhow, we consider this play as a solo play written by Francis Beamunt. And it is a satire on chivalric romances. And it is a highly experimental play. And this play is a highly experimental play because this play breaks the fourth wall, the wall between the audience and the stage. There is always a wall between the stage and the audience. Normally, in a regular drama, the theatrical people on the stage are not supposed to communicate with the audience. And the audience will not be permitted to enter the stage and play their roles. But this drama, and this is what called the fourth wall. And this drama actually breaks the fourth wall, the wall between the stage and the audiences. So there are many playwrights in the modern times who broke the fourth wall. So the dramas produced on the streets, the street dramas, don't have the fourth wall kept in. So in many plays written in the modern times, we find that the fourth wall is broken. But this play was produced in 1607, say some 400 years before the modern times, some 4 centuries before. It was produced in 17th century. And it tried to break the fourth wall. For example, in the plays written by Bedel Sirka, we come to find that there is the break of the fourth wall. So in Evam Indrajit also, it's a very popular play, Evam Indrajit and Indrajit. We find the playwright communicating with the audience and taking 4 young men from the group of the audience, and there is Indrajit also. And this is the way of breaking the fourth wall. And Beamunt tried to break the fourth wall, the wall that separates the stage and the audience. It is the reason why the play is to be called a highly experimental play, produced early in 1607. And it is a parody on the chivalric romances. Like in Don Quixote, we come to find that there is chivalry. There is the production of the presentation of adventure. And in Beamunt, we come to find only misadventure. And it is actually a parody on chivalric romances. And also a parody on the urban heroism. In Thomas Heywood, we come to find urban heroism. Apprentices turning to become kings and dukes. And in Thomas the Case, Shoemaker's Holiday also, we come to find the apprentices are so awarded or apprentices are recognized or accepted. And this actually, the play, The Night of the Burning Pestle, is a parody on all such things. And I told you, the play written by Beamunt breaks the fourth wall. And it is actually an imaginary wall that separates the stage and the audience. And it is broken. And very interestingly, the title. The title is The Night of the Burning Pestle. And what is Pestle? Pestle is actually a club-shaped equipment. And normally in the houses, there will be a bowl with a pestle, a mortar and a pestle. And ordinarily it is used in the kitchen. So mortar is actually a bowl kind of thing, and pestle is a club-shaped equipment. And with this pestle, the people, so in the kitchen, will grind the grains. And so in the laboratories and in the kitchens, we find the use of the mortar and the pestle. And the pestle is actually the thing that is used for grinding the grains in a bowl-shaped mortar. Mortar is a bowl-shaped thing, and pestle is used to grind the grains. For example, if some grains are put in, so some pepper grains are put in, so they may be grinded with the pestle. And it is a thing used in the kitchen and in the medicine making places and in laboratories. They use this thing. And in this play, we come to find a young man with an inscription of a pestle on his shirt. So he's found wearing a shirt and there is a pestle inscribed on his shirt. Pestle. So he's the symbol of the club-shaped tool used in the kitchen for grinding the grains. And actually in a grocery, so the work of the apprentice is to give the people the grains. And so the apprentice is provided with a shirt with the emblem of a pestle. And the central character or the interesting person, not to be called the central character, and he is an interesting person. He is named Rafi. And this young man is found wearing the emblem of a pestle on his shirt, and he is called the knight with the burning pestle. And he is called a knight, like the knight errant found in Don Quixote. So in the chivalric romance Don Quixote, we come to find a knight errant. So looking after adventures. And here also we come to find a knight, and he is a man with a burning pestle inscribed on his dress. Perhaps the apprentices of grocers may be wearing such a kind of dress. If they work in the shop, the people may come for buying the various kinds of grains. And when they find the persons wearing the dress with the pestle inscribed, so they come to understand that these men are the apprentices of the grocer. And grocer perhaps also may be wearing a kind of uniform. So this is a way that the people will come to understand that the grocer is a man wearing some special kind of dress, and the apprentices are people wearing some special kind of uniforms. And here we come to find a young man referred to as a knight wearing the burning pestle inscribed on his shirt. And actually, when we come to find the content of the play, actually, there is a play inside the play. Very interestingly, the play to be performed on the stage is entitled The London Merchant. So in the play, The Night of the Burning Pestle, there is also a play inside. And the play, inside the play is entitled The London Merchant. And the play is about to be performed. And there are the people sitting in their chairs, waiting for the play to begin. So they have paid their money at the counter and took the tickets and entered the theater. And they were found sitting in the seats, waiting for the play to begin. And the play to be performed on the stage was named The London Merchant. And as the play is about to be performed, a grocer and his wife from the audience suddenly get up from the area of the audience, a grocer and his wife. And they go to the stage. And they climb the stairs and stand on the stage. And they tell the people sitting in the auditorium that all of them have been paying their money at the counter to watch the play. But what actually they found in the play? So some story with no relation to their life. So they actually misrepresent the middle class life. The plays normally they see misrepresent the middle class life. And here in the play, there is the story of the London merchant, and they believe that it may be the story of a merchant. But they are not sure that it will be a story connected with their life. And normally they have been spending their money and time and watching plays with no relation to their life. And in fact, they want their apprentice named Rafe also to perform a role in the play. The grocer and his wife say that they have a very resourceful young man working under them as an apprentice. And he's a very capable young man to perform the role of a knight. And he is to be called a knight of the grocer, a grocer knight. So, and a knight errant, a grocer's knight errant. And they, on coming to the stage, tell the people that they want their apprentice Rafe also play a role in the play, and the stage keeper of the play comes there. And the grocer and his wife demand that their young knight also should be, their young apprentice also should be provided a chance to play in the play on the stage. And the stage keeper has to accept it. So he says that the stage keeper offers them the chance of permitting Rafe also to play a role. And he promises a role for Rafe also to play in the play to be performed there, entitled The London Merchant. So when the play called London Merchant is about to be performed, a grocer and his wife from the audience complain that they pay for tickets but see the story of the nobility. So they want their apprentice Rafe, and he is named Rafe, R-A-F-E, Rafe. And the police character named Rafe is found in Christopher Marlowe's Dr.Salim also. And here we come to find another interesting character named Rafe, R-A-F-E. And the grocer and his wife say that they have an apprentice, a very resourceful apprentice named Rafe, and he is also to be accommodated in the play, that he must be given a chance to play a role in the play. And when the name of Rafe is mentioned, we find Rafe getting up from the group of the audience and walking towards the stage in a very dramatic manner, making his paces like a hero. And he comes there with the body movement of a knight, and he is there with his pestle. So there is the pestle on his shirt, engraved on his shield, and he comes to the stage, jumping, slightly jumping, And in akimbo, with his hands put on his waist, he announces to the people that he can play a very good role in the play. And he repeats a few dialogues he learned from a play written by Shakespeare. And he starts repeating a few dialogues from Shakespeare's play Henry IV Part 1. And in Henry IV Part 1, there are many dialogues given by Hotspur. Hotspur is the villain there in Henry IV Part 1. And he is Harry Pestle. And he is there to fight with Henry IV. But at the end, he becomes killed by the son of Henry IV, who later turned out to become Henry V. And Henry IV is also another Harry, Prince Harry. And he kills his opponent named Hotspur. And Hotspur is a man with high-sounding dialogues. And Rafe comes on the stage and in the position of akimbo, so with the hands put on his waist, he makes the powerful dialogue of Hotspur in Shakespeare's play Henry IV, quoting a few lines, and everyone applauds him. And the people in the audience become very happy. So now, the young apprentice is actually a representative of the audience. And not only that, he is also a very good performer. So he can perform like Hotspur in Shakespeare's play Henry IV. And then the main plot of the drama begins. Even though it is interrupted in the beginning, so it retains and the main plot becomes exposed. And in the main plot, there is Jasper Merrythought, an apprentice of the London merchant. And it is actually the story of an apprentice. And the play is titled The London Merchant. And in the play, The Night of the Burning Pestle, there is one more play. And the play, inside the play, is called The London Merchant. And in the London Merchant, there is a young apprentice named Jasper Merrythought. And he is an apprentice of the London Merchant. And he is in love with his master's daughter, Lucy. Jasper Merrythought is in love with the merchant's daughter named Lucy. And he actually wants to elope with Lucy, because he wants to save Lucy from the arranged marriage with Humphrey. The London merchant refused to give his daughter in marriage with Jasper Merrythought. And he wants actually his daughter to be married by a country fool named Humphrey, a city swell, a man of fashion, a foolish freak. Humphrey, a fat, foolish freak named Humphrey, rich. Actually, the London merchant wanted his daughter Lucy marry a city bumpkin called Humphrey. But she is actually in love with Jasper, the young apprentice under the London merchant. And they devise a plan. So Lucy tells Humphrey that she is prepared to marry him. So Lucy tells Humphrey that she is prepared to marry him only through an elopement. So she is prepared to marry Humphrey if he is prepared to elope with her. And she wants to be married through an elopement. And she tells that she wants to be married through an elopement. So she wants Humphrey to elope with her. And Humphrey becomes very happy to elope with Lucy. And the merchant also is very happy, because So if his daughter elopes with Humphrey, there will be no need for spending money for the marriage. And he is so actually relieved of spending money for the marriage, and he's also happy. And it's a plan devised by the young girl Lucy and her lover Jasper Meritorious. And actually, Lucy wants Humphrey to elope with her, and when they reach the wilderness, Jasper will be there, and he will beat down Humphrey, and then they will run away from there. Lucy and Jasper will run away from there and go to some far-off place and then start living there. And this is their plan. And she tells Humphrey that she is prepared to marry him only through an elopement, and he agrees with it, and the merchant also agrees with it. Merchant becomes happy because there is no need to spend money on the marriage of his daughter. And this is, so the one plot in the play, included in the play, and the main play is called The Night of the Burning Pestle, written by Francis Beamunt. And the play inside the play is called The London Merchant. And in The London Merchant, we find an apprentice named Jasper Merithod working under a London merchant, and he is in love with the merchant's daughter Lucy. But the merchant wants Lucy to marry a city bumpkin named Humphrey. And they devise a plan, and Lucy tells Humphrey that she wants to be eloped with Humphrey. And the merchant becomes happy because there is no need to spend money on the marriage of his daughter. And Humphrey and Lucy, so they elope from the place. And then there is another plot also. And this plot is connected with Jasper's personal life. Jasper has got his mother, and she has left her home because her husband, Merithod, was a drunkard and spent all the money of the home. And the lady actually wanted to save herself from her husband. And she had another son also named Michael. And she actually wanted to save Michael also. So the elder son, Jasper, has gone to the town and has become an apprentice under a merchant there. And there is again a young boy named Michael, and he should also be given a chance to work as an apprentice. But the father has been creating troubles in the home, spending all the money. Mr. Merithod seems to be a drunkard, quarreling with his wife, and finally the lady, the mother Merithod, takes all her jewelry and takes her younger son Michael also and reach the wilderness. And when they reach the wilderness, she hides her jewelry under a tree, under the shade of a tree, under some leaves. She hides her jewelry, and then she goes in search of food and drink. And after all, when she returns, she could not identify the place where she had hidden the jewelry because there were many number of trees in the area, and there were a lot of leaves also found huddled together, so that she could not identify the place where she had hidden her jewelry, and she was in great distress and was found crying in the wilderness. And when it came to be known to Rafi, and Rafi we know is the apprentice to the grocer, who has come to watch the play and has been given some chance to play on the stage. And this young man learns that there has been a lady in the wilderness crying for help. And the old lady, Merithod, has hidden her jewelry somewhere, but she could not locate the place. And in fact, she thinks that her jewelry is stolen. She thinks that her jewelry is stolen. And she has got her son also, and she is in great distress and trouble. And actually, it is the duty of a knight errant. And he is a grocer errant. Rafi is a grocer errant. And it is the duty, the primary duty of a errand to save a lady in distress. If a lady is in distress, she should be saved. In Don Quixote also we come to find Quixote so getting into troubles by saving the ladies in distress. And very interestingly, in Don Quixote, there is an instance of Quixote trying to save a lady from the custody of two men. Quixote, while coming on his horse, found that a carriage contained a lady and two men. And he thought that the men had stolen the lady, and he stopped the carriage and fought with the men and became wounded. And then only he realized that the lady was actually the sister to the men. And always Don Quixote is found doing misadventures, getting into troubles. And here also Rafe, another knight errant, and he is grocer errant. And he learns from somebody that there has been a lady crying loud in the wilderness, in the forest, and Rafe feels that it must be his duty to go there and to save the lady. And he reaches there, and he comes to the stage and announces to the audience that there has been a lady in distress found in the wilderness, that I will go and save her. And he goes to the wilderness and finds the lady and takes the lady to an inn and wants the innkeeper to provide her a room and the other facilities. And the owner of the inn, the innkeeper, wanted Jasper Merrythought to pay money, and Jasper told him that he is a knight and he doesn't have money, and she is a lady in distress, and it is his duty to protect such a lady. So he wants the lady to be protected, and he wants the innkeeper to provide a room and other facilities to the lady. And the innkeeper now comes to understand that the young man Rafi is mad. And therefore he tells Rafi that, so you will have to go and save many number of people. You will have to go and save many number of people in distress. Not only this lady, but there are many number of people in great distress. So for example, there are many number of people in great distress, locked by, imprisoned by a barber named Barbarasso. Barbarasso is actually a barber cum surgeon. So in the Middle Ages, there were the barber cum surgeons. So the surgeons are also barbers. Normally they did the operations. And if a person is put under a medical operation, he should be put in the custody, otherwise he would escape from there. In fact, a man is to be tied to the bed for the operation, and after operation also he should be put there. Otherwise, he will break the bondages and escape from there. And in fact, there are many number of people imprisoned by the barber cum surgeon named Barbaras, and he wants Rafe to go there and to save the people. Not only to save this lady, but to go and save the other people also. And very interesting character is Rafe. And Rafe reports to the people on returning. Rafe reports to the people, the audience, that he will go and fight with Barbaras also and save the people under his custody. So these are the things taking place alternately in the play, parallel to the developments in the play. There are also things taking place done by Rafe. And these are the things that take place at the same time. And we come to find the story in the London Merchant. Lucy eloped with Humphrey, and in the wilderness, Jasper waited for Humphrey and Lucy. And Jasper found jewelry hid under a tree. And actually, it was the jewelry of his mother. So it was jewelry lost by the mother. And the mother was found crying because she lost her jewelry. And fortunately, the jewelry came into the hands of Jasper. And Jasper has now become rich. And he waited for Humphrey and Lucy to come there. And when they reached there, Jasper fight with Humphrey and defeated him and beaten him down like pulp and escaped from there with Lucy. And when the merchant learned about it, he came with the people, and Humphrey returned and intimated to the merchant that Lucy was stolen away by Jasper, that Jasper had beaten him. And the merchant with his people went and forcibly brought Lucy back to the house and imprisoned her in the house. The merchant and Humphrey reached the forest and forcibly took Lucy with them and put her in the house. And Jasper now sends news that he is dead. Jasper now sends news through other apprentices that he is dead. And it is a custom, if an apprentice is dead, so the funeral and the things must be done by the merchant. It is the responsibility of the merchant to perform the funeral rites. Therefore, the dead body of Jasper is brought in a coffin. Jasper intimates the merchant that he is dead. So his friends come to the merchant and intimates him that Jasper is dead. And the merchant becomes greatly relieved, thinking that Jasper dead. So it seems easy for him to make arrangement for the marriage between Lucy and Humphrey. And then the merchant has to look after the funeral rites of Jasper. Therefore, the dead body of Jasper is brought there in a coffin. And the coffin is brought into the house. And after all, when the coffin is brought into the house, Jasper comes out from the coffin and hides himself in the house. And after all, Lucy is put in the coffin and she is sent out. Lucy takes the place of Jasper, and so she is sent out for the funeral and things are done. And Lucy escapes from her house. And then Jasper, hidden in the house, creates troubles in the house. So he produces sounds and he makes catcalls and frightens the merchant. And merchant looks for his daughter in the night and she could not be found. But he hears sounds of a ghost and he becomes frightened at the end. And he finds Jasper in the shape of a ghost. And the ghost threatens the merchant, and the merchant agrees that he will make arrangement for the marriage between Jasper and his daughter. And Jasper gets married with Lucy. The merchant has now no option but to permit Jasper. And Jasper is not dead, and he comes to understand. And he becomes frightened. And he agrees to Jasper for their marriage. And Jasper gets married with Lucy. And that is the end of the play. And then Rafe comes to the stage and he says that he wants to play some more roles. And the grocer and his wife demand that Rafe should be given some chivalric scenes also. And therefore an additional scene is also created in the play. And it is in the scene, Rafi is asked to go to Moldavia. He is asked to go to Moldavia to win the hand of the princess. And actually there is a princess named Pampiona. In Moldavia, there is a princess called Pampiona. And Rafi is asked by the stage keeper to go to Moldavia and to get married with the princess there. And this is a very interesting scene as far as a young apprentice is concerned. But Rafi says that there is no need to go to Moldavia to marry a princess because he's already in love with a cobbler's wife named Susan in the Milk Street. In the London Milk Street, he had been in love with a cobbler's wife that there is no need for him to go to Moldavia and to marry Pambiona. And so there is no need for him to go to Moldavia. And the grocer and the wife again demand that Jasper must be given a chance to play a chivalric dying scene. And the drama is about to be closed down. And therefore, the people will be surprised what will happen to Rafi. So Rafi must be given a chance to face a chivalric dying scene. And everyone becomes satisfied with the death scene of Rafi produced on the stage. Rafi so produces a chivalric dying scene on the stage, and the audience becomes happy to find Rafi dying. And there are a lot of innuendos and sexual jokes and several hints also used in the play. That it is a boisterous comedy, and an experimental play. And remember the play always, please. And we discussed now one more play independently written by Fletcher. And The Night of the Burning Pestle is actually a solo play produced by Beamunt. And we want to find one solo play produced by Fletcher also. And we take the very popular play produced by Fletcher entitled The Faithful Shepherdess. And the importance for the play is that it is in this preface to the play, the definition of tragicomedy is presented by Fletcher. Fletcher gives his idea of tragicomedy in the preface to this play. And it is this reason why the play seems to be very popular. So The Faithful Shepherdess is a play with a preface containing the definition of tragicomedy given by Fletcher. And Fletcher and Beamunt are specially known for their tragicomedies. And they are the founders of the genre called tragicomedy. And Faithful Shepherdess is a play independently produced by Fletcher. And the performance of the play was a failure. It was produced in 1608 or 9. The performance of the play was a failure, but the text contained Fletcher's definition of tragicomedy. And the play actually is an adaptation of an Italian story written by Battista Gaurani. So Giovanni Battista Gaurini has got a very popular play called Il Pastor Fido, or The Faithful Shepherds. And this is adopted by Fletcher for the play The Faithful Shepherds, Shepherdess. And very interestingly, Fletcher has described this play as a pastoral tragicomedy, not only tragicomedy but pastoral also, set in a pasture, speaking the story of a group of shepherds and shepherdess. And the heroine of the play is a shepherdess named Chlorine. And remember, the protagonist of the play is a shepherdess, a female named Chlorine. Her love has died. Actually, the lover is dead. Yet she remains loyal to his memory. But she remains loyal to his memory and living by the side of his grave. And she has built a hut near his grave. Her lover is dead. And she has built a small hut near the grave, and she retains her chastity staying there. And she remains loyal to the memory of her lover. And actually in the play, Fletcher glorifies chaste humanhood. And it is in a Spencer-like fairy atmosphere. So in Fairy Cune also we come to find Spencer glorifying chastity of womanhood. There is a chaste knight also, Lady Britomart. In the third book of Fairy Cune, we come to find a chaste woman named Lady Britomart, known for her chastity. And in the first book itself, we come to find Una, and she is also an embodiment of chastity, but she represents the virtue of truth. And Red Cross Knight represents the virtue of holiness. And in the 6 books, we come to find the virtues, the Christian virtues, represented by various knights. And in the 3rd book, we come to find Lady Britomart representing the virtue of chastity, like Edmund Spencer glorifying chaste womanhood in his Fairy Cune. Fletcher also glorifies chaste womanhood in Faithful Shepherdess. And in this play, we come to find the female protagonist is named Chlorine, an epitomic name. So whenever we refer to the name of Chlorine, we remember that it is the name of a chaste lady, a shepherdess, Chlorine. And Chlorine actually lost her lover became dead. And she has built a small hut near the grave of her lover and staying in the hut, keeping memories of her lover and remaining always chaste. And actually, there are the lovesick people coming to her for cure. And she is a master of love. And only for love that she has been living the life of a martyr. She has been living the life of a martyr only for her love. And therefore, she has been regarded as a great master of love and a curer of the lovesick people. The lovesick people come to her for a cure. For example, other shepherds like Amoret, and who is in love with Perigord, they come for curing their lovesickness. And there are also the other lovers like Clove and Tinoch coming to her for curing their lovesickness. And there are many number of shepherds and shepherdess approaching her for a solution to their problem of love. And she is considered as the faithful shepherdess. And the eponymous heroine of the faithful shepherdess is Chlorine. Always remember the eponymous heroine of a play. And herein, the eponymous heroine is Chlorine. And when Fletcher produced this play, so the first edition contained commendatory poems written by Ben Jonson, Chapman, Beamunt, and Nathan Field. The playwrights of the period, like Ben Jonson, George Chapman, and his close friend Beamunt, and other playwright named Nathan Field, all contributed commendatory poems when the play was produced. The first edition of the play contained commendatory poems. And the preface of the play contained Fletcher's definition of tragicomedy. And it is called Fletcher's address to the reader. And the definition is given in the preface to the play, addressing the readers, saying to the reader, according to Fletcher, a tragicomedy is not so called in respect of mirth and killing. It is not so called in respect of, because there is mirth and killing, it is called a tragicomedy, is wrong definition. But in respect of want of death, where there is the lack of death. In a tragicomedy, there is the lack of death. And that is enough to make it no tragedy, and that is enough to make it no tragedy. And this kind of a play is called a tragicomedy. And very interestingly, we come to find tragicomedies written earlier by people like Samuel Daniel. Samuel Daniel was a friend of Philip Sidney and Mary Sidney. And Samuel Daniel also produced a sonnet sequence addressed to Mary Sydney. And he also produced the Kuhn's Arcadian. And it is produced as a tragicomedy. And very interestingly, we know that Fletcher produced his definition of tragicomedy in the preface attached to his play, The Faithful Shepherdess. And the female protagonist is Chlorine. And her love died, and still she is so faithful to the memory of her lover and keeping herself a virgin lady. And there is a shepherd named Tinot falling in love with her. But at the end, he comes to understand that, and he falls in love with Chlorine only because Chlorine is faithful to the memory of her lover. But Chlorine refuses him. And at the same time, Chlorine is there solving the problems of the shepherds there. And she has been functioning as a doctor curing the love sickness of the people. And she is called the Faithful Shepherdess. And we know that Fletcher joined with Shakespeare for a play entitled Two Noble Kinsmen. And Fletcher was there with Shakespeare for the play Henry VIII. And Henry VIII is alternately called All Is True. And you remember that the play written by Shakespeare entitled Henry VIII has got a subtitle, All Is True. And the play is jointly written by Shakespeare and Fletcher. And Fletcher also joined with Shakespeare for another play entitled Two Noble Kinsmen, and it is not included in the Ovier of Shakespeare. The story of the Two Noble Kinsmen is closely related with the story given by Chaucer's Knight's Tale. The story in the Knight's Tale is repeated by Shakespeare and Fletcher for a play entitled Two Noble Kinsmen. And it is also believed that Fletcher joined with Shakespeare for the lost play Cardenio. Cardenio was a lost play from the Ovier of Shakespeare. And at a later stage, Louis Theobald, who lived during the time of Alexander Pope, maintained the opinion that he had found Cardenio and that he had produced a play out of it, entitled Double Falsehood or Distressed Lovers. And actually, it is believed that Cardenio was a play jointly written by Shakespeare and Fletcher. And these are the things we learned from Beamunt and Fletcher. And thank you for the time being.